In my previous video, I covered what my thoughts were on One Piece's way of writing men, and how diverse, unique, and interesting the variation of characters are. This will be continuing from that video, so please make sure to check it out right here. Previously, I discussed how the characters of Zoro and Luffy, despite both being very different kinds of men, are both written as very strong and capable people, even after their most difficult battles, and even after they lose a battle. We looked into how Luffy might not be traditionally masculine, but is still respected as a man by the audience, and how Zoro never once is treated lesser even when he loses in a fight to Mihawk. In fact, in a certain way it's written as a success, because the very act of Zoro rising to the challenge makes him stronger, and teaching an audience that success can be complicated and often something that comes from acceptance or patience is a very unique message to get from a shonen story. This theme of what exactly succeeding even is repeatedly shown with these kinds of characters. And One Piece very cleverly chooses to not depict winning as succeeding, instead choosing to see success as a complex and often very internal experience. A great example of this is Luffy's fight with Big Mom, or even earlier, his fight with Crocodile, and how despite being defeated at his first attempts, we still respect Luffy, because he always has good intentions and never gives up on trying to achieve his goal. But I think there is another, more extreme example of this. An example of a strong, masculine character who is completely, utterly stripped of any strength, honor, and any victories he has had are all blown up in his face. And yet, a character who we, as the audience, never once doubted the masculinity of. And it's the character we've all been waiting for! Is Katakuri. Aww. Now before I get into this, there will absolutely be spoilers for Whole Cake and the entirety of Katakuri's arc in Whole Cake, so if you want to skip all that, go to this time. Katakuri is, as far as I'm concerned, the most upfront critique on masculine idols in the whole story of One Piece. He is first introduced to us as a protective, emotionless wall of spikes who has no other desires than to be exactly that. Other characters constantly refer to him as literally the perfect man, someone who does not indulge, cry, or feel anything. His own siblings even spread the tale that he has never even lain on his back or rested. The thing is, none of this is true. It's all a complete facade. And Katakuri himself even hates the praise and comments on his seemingly strong persona because he knows it's all lies. In some sense, Katakuri is the opposite of Luffy. While Luffy accepts who he is without concern of how others see him, Katakuri is haunted by his own fears and shadow, and the expectations that burn him out. He is not his honest self in any regard, and is essentially living a very miserable lie. Katakuri's failure to be the perfect man is once again not depicted as a failure, but openly accepted as a human quality. During Luffy's fight with Katakuri, Katakuri leaves Luffy after presumably defeating him, and goes on to indulge in his darkest secret. For the first time as the audience, we see all these mysteries and layers unfold into a real person. Katakuri is gluttonous, shy, and absolutely lays on his back. Every tale we have been told crumbles to the ground, and the only other person who sees this is Luffy. After invading the poor Mochi Man's privacy, Luffy seems to have a better idea of why exactly Katakuri is the way he is. Katakuri has never done this for himself. He isn't fighting for himself, he is fighting for the well-being of his family. A family that he hides himself from, spiraling him further and further down a hole of self-hatred. During this fight, one of Katakuri's youngest sisters, Flampe, has been cheering him on and attempting to sabotage his fight in his favor. She has this idea that he is far too strong and focused to care or be upset with her for intervening with his own battle. And that seemed to be the final straw. Katakuri snaps at Flampe, something he has never done before, and by doing this shows his wide, unnaturally shaped mouth. This freaks Flampe out, and she ridicules the vulnerability shown to her by her once perfect brother, now seen as an ugly monster. I think what makes this scene so sad is that it isn't some humiliation through losing a fight, like with Zoro or something otherwise powerful and climactic. It's just a man being insecure about his face, something so incredibly normal and mundane that it is relatable to the majority of people. The vulnerability shown by him being met with immediate rejection brings Katakuri to the realization that he is not accepted for who he is. Instead, he is pushed to be someone else, because the reality of loving what he already is not seen as an option by the majority of his family. And to try to protect their happiness, he keeps the act up. Luffy is the only person who has openly not cared about Katakuri's mouth in this fight, because Luffy doesn't reject vulnerability. Instead, he embraces it. And Katakuri respects this. So he continues the fight, taking off his jacket, ready to rather fight for himself than for his family. Katakuri may have lost the fight to Luffy in the end, but he by no means loses anything. There is an internal success that he experiences, coming to the realization that the person he is, not the person people want him to be, but the person he truly is real and deserving of his own compassion. With all of these characters, we are either looking through the eyes of Luffy or being guided by him. He is the main character after all, and a main character's morals are often a learning lesson for the audience, teaching them right from wrong in the world they inhabit. So how is this a positive influence for men, especially when so many young men and boys are fans of the show? Well, I think that's pretty easy. Luffy, and most of the other protagonist characters in One Piece, have morals and ideas of masculinity that are complex and multi-layered. And if we can create characters with these layers of complexity, we can teach people and raise people with confidence, kindness, and strength. If you like these kinds of video essays, please consider subscribing to my channel or checking out my Instagram to see my other projects. Thank you for watching.